She was chair, Democrat, County Democrat Party. I was her.
Recording in progress.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Sustainability and Infrastructure Commission this Wednesday evening, November 13th. I now call this meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Certainly. Commissioner Kranz,
Here.
Commissioner Rowinski,
Here.
Chair Narita,
Here.
Vice Chair Michael,
Here.
Commissioner Robbins.
Here.
Great. Well, welcome. We are excited to be here in person with options for those who choose not to be in person to still participate virtually. For those attending in person, please complete a yellow request to speak slip and hand it to the clerk. If participating remotely, use the raise your hand feature in Zoom and you will be called on at the appropriate time. If calling in via phone, press *9 to raise your hand, and when called upon, press *6 to unmute. These options for public comment will remain available until I close the public comment period for that specific item. Okay, next thing. Clerk, please read the consent calendar.
Sustainability and Infrastructure Commission regular meeting minutes approval. Approve the minutes of the Sustainability and Infrastructure Commission meetings of September 11th, October 9th, and October 23rd.
Thank you. Is there any member of the commission who would like to pull an item from the consent calendar? Great. Is there any member of the public who would wish to comment on any consent calendar item? Now would be the time to make your comment. Okay. Madam Clerk, we have have we received any requests to speak on the consent calendar?
No.
All righty. So is there a motion from the commission to approve the consent calendar?
Also move.
I'll second.
Great, thanks. We have a vote?
Commissioner Kranz,
Aye.
Commissioner Rowinski,
Aye.
Chair Narita,
Aye.
Vice Chair Michael,
Yes.
Commissioner Robbins.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Great, thank you. The next item on our agenda is public comment. Members of the public wishing to comment on any item not appearing on the agenda may address the commission at this time. State law prevents the commission from taking action on any matter not on the agenda. Your comments may be referred to staff for follow-up. This public comment section is generally limited to a total of 15 minutes. However, it is subject to commission's discretion and can be extended if commission wishes to do so. And one more note, we welcome speakers providing public comment, but please be advised that this is a limited public forum. As such, speakers must stay on topic if speaking to a particular agenda item. And if speaking during general public comment, they must address matters within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city. If speakers fail to follow these rules, they will be warned. And if they continue to disregard our rules, their opportunity to speak will be ended. Are there any general public comments?
No.
Okie doke. Okay, so our new business today is a San Mateo County Transportation Authority project update with presenter, city alum, Sue Ellen Atkinson. Welcome. Thank you so much for returning in this capacity, Sue Ellen. It's lovely to see you and your colleague.
Great.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Amy Linehan. I'm a Government Community Affairs Officer for the Transportation Authority. Sue Ellen and I are here to give you an update and get your feedback on two projects that the TA is conducting outreach for this fall. The first one is the Mid-County Multimodal Strategy, and the second project we'll be talking about is the US 101 San Mateo County Crossings Improvement Plan, also known as 101 because that first title, it's a long one. Next slide, please. Oh, I can do it.
No, that's it. Sorry. I have to do it.
Okay. Thanks. So just a brief agenda of what we're going to present this evening. We're going to do a little bit of an introduction, provide you an overview of what is our 101 Corridor Connect program, which both of these projects are nestled under. Sue Ellen's going to talk about our multimodal strategies and our Mid-County Multimodal Strategy, and then we'll go into Active 101 and then move on to some Q&A, which is really what we want to focus on this evening. We want to make sure we're answering any question commissioners may have, and most importantly, get feedback from you on these two projects. You can go ahead to the next one. So we like to slow this slide because I'm sure a lot of us have experienced traffic like this on 101 in San Mateo County. So to help prevent this, the San Mateo County Transportation Authority, or TA, is working on a program called 101 Corridor Connect to help with these levels of congestion in San Mateo County along US 101. 101 Corridor Connect is a collaborative program that we've developed to identify and prioritize congestion management projects along US 101 in San Mateo County. And it's important to note that this project looks beyond just highway infrastructure and considers the mobility of the corridor as a whole. So we're not just looking at the highway when it comes to this program. We have a number of program partners, including CCAG, Caltrans, cities along the corridor, our partner transit agencies, and the county itself. So how is 101 Corridor Connect going to actually reduce congestion? By tying different modes of transportation together, like biking, walking, rolling, driving, or taking transit, we can reduce congestion. For example, if you take Caltrain to a shuttle or a bike to a shuttle, you're effectively taking cars off the freeway. So providing people access to multiple modes of transportation, we can effectively take multiple modes of cars off the freeway and thereby, at the end of the day, reducing congestion.
All right, my turn to take over. Hi, Commissioners. Sue Ellen Atkinson, Manager of Planning and Fund Management at the TA, and good to see all of you. So the first initiative under the overarching 101 Corridor Connect program is the multimodal strategies effort. We've broken the county into three segments: North County, Mid-County, and South County. North County was worked on last year. We're just wrapping up that effort right now. North County included South San Francisco down to Millbrae. And with that almost wrapping up, we're moving into Mid-County, which is why we're here tonight, because San Mateo is included in our Mid-County multimodal strategy. So multimodal strategy is a new word for most of us. So what is it exactly? What we're planning to develop are planning documents that will identify and prioritize projects in San Mateo County. And for this project, again, we're looking beyond just US 101. We're looking at projects within a mile of the freeway. And so that includes projects that are on the highway, but it also includes active transportation projects, transit, et cetera. So the multimodal strategies, again, are the first initiative under the 101 Corridor Connect program, and they'll help us to identify, prioritize, and recommend which projects get implemented under 101 Corridor Connect. And in doing this multimodal strategy effort, we're identifying what improvements and what projects are most important to the county in order to make it easier and more efficient to get around in ways perhaps other than driving alone or in making improvements on the highway. So how are we going to go about developing the multimodal strategies? The first step is to identify and evaluate which projects should be included in this effort. So again, we're looking within a mile of 101, including along the freeway, and we're not reinventing the wheel. We're looking at existing planning documents for Caltrans, from MTC, from CCAG, and from the various jurisdictions along 101. And we're pulling out projects that have the potential to reduce congestion along US 101. Once those projects have been pulled out and identified, we'll be prioritizing them based on the goals of the 101 Corridor Connect program, which includes safety, connectivity, inclusivity, and sustainability, and also evaluating them based on various factors like grant program guidelines to determine which projects may be most competitive for certain types of grants, as well as prioritizing based on community feedback and the TA's strategic plan. Next, with prioritization, they'll be basically ranked based on the results of that evaluation process to inform a final program of projects. So we'll come out of this with a list of projects telling us what's most important to the community and what projects have the ability to reduce congestion along 101. Then we'll go into implementation for this project, which is in terms of this project is identifying ways to deliver the project. So that may be through TA grant programs. It may be through providing technical assistance to jurisdictions to apply for TA grants or for other grant programs. Or it may identify interjurisdictional projects that the TA may be more likely to lead. But we will be coming out of this with an implementation plan that tells us what the next steps in terms of funding and delivery would be for those projects. So again, we're just starting the Mid-County effort, which starts in Burlingame and goes down to and including San Carlos. So San Mateo is right in the middle of our study area right now. This fall, we've been doing outreach in the community and to other entities like this commission within the project area. And we will be working on this effort through, it says spring, it'll likely be closer to summer when we are coming back with those prioritized projects. So in terms of timeline, again, we started off over the summer. We did existing conditions and identifying that whole suite of projects. Fall, we've been busy in the community at various engagement events, which Amy will talk about in more detail. And then going into the winter, we'll be doing a lot of work on prioritization and identifying those priority projects. And then toward the summer, we'll have the final Mid-County strategy. And as mentioned, I'll turn it back over to Amy to talk about our community engagement.
Great, thank you. So as part of our 101 Corridor Connect, we are implementing a robust community engagement program for the multimodal strategies. And this is made up of a variety of different components, digital and in person. So we did develop a webpage specifically to this project. We initiated an online survey. It is mobile optimized and it is in multiple languages. The core of the survey is to get at how people are experiencing travel along the 101 corridor, where the pain points are, and what improvements could be made in order to maybe get them out of their car and try a different mode of transportation, try a bus, try a train, maybe carpool when they're driving in a single occupancy vehicle. The survey is our main point of feedback. It's our main feedback loop, and we've been distributing it widely. That will close at the end of this month, and we'll be aggregating the results that we get. We also are holding in-person events. We've had pop-up events in each city within the study area. And a pop-up is really just when we put up a tent at an already scheduled community event and talk to community members about how they're experiencing travel along the 101 corridor. It duplicates the survey, so people can participate in the survey online and in these pop-up events and talk to project staff, get any questions answered they might want to have answered. We're also establishing partnerships with community-based organizations within the study area. This really gets at community members that aren't necessarily available to attend a pop-up or may not be able to fill out a survey. It really gets at a different set of audience to make sure that we're really talking to everybody. We've been doing many stakeholder presentations just like this one tonight. I'm really talking to our stakeholders about what they think their constituents might want to see along the 101 corridor. As part of the multimodal strategies, we set up a project working group that has representatives from each of those partner agencies where they get a little bit more in depth on the technical elements of the multimodal strategies and the projects and plans that we're looking at, just to make sure that city staff, county staff has an opportunity to buy into those multimodal strategies. Like I said, everything we're doing as part of this outreach is in multiple languages, and we have interpretation available at those in-person events. We did try something different with this particular strategy, and we identified the 5 bus stops with top ridership in each city across the study area, and we put up temporary bus signs, multiple languages, where people can, while they're waiting for the bus, take the survey. This was an effort to really get outreach out to our bus riders and making sure that there was a different constituency that had the ability to engage and fill out the survey. Like I said, the main feedback loop is this survey. We've been pushing it out, really trying to get at the heart of the matter is how can we improve the travel experience along the 101 corridor. We did add a bit of a carrot to this one this time around. People who finish the survey and give us their email address are entered into a raffle to win a $100 Target gift card. We're giving out 3 of those. So again, the plan is to leave the survey open until the end of November and then aggregate the results we get from the survey to see what projects and what priorities bubble to the top. And with that, we're going to go into our next project that we've also been doing outreach for this fall. It has been a busy fall at the TA. This is our Active 101 project, also known as US 101 San Mateo County Crossings Improvement Plan. This is a phased project. We are in phase 1, which is really focused on getting community and stakeholder feedback about what projects and improvements are needed in terms of active transportation along the 101 corridor. And actually, I'm going to turn it back to Sue Ellen to talk more about Active 101.
All right. So while we've been talking about 101 being a great north-south connection throughout the county, it also is a barrier in a lot of communities. So for example, this location in Redwood City, I usually have to apologize to Redwood City, but we're in San Mateo. This location in Redwood City, you can see that it's really easy to travel east-west if you're in a car. However, if you are walking, biking, or rolling, it doesn't appear safe, it doesn't appear comfortable. There's no sidewalks, there's no bike lanes. So as part of the 101 Corridor Connect program, we've started a second initiative, which, as Amy mentioned, is the Active 101 project. Active 101 is focused on identifying crossing and corridor improvements within a quarter mile of 101. That's focused on situations just like that in Redwood City, where it's not easy to cross the barrier that 101 presents for east-west travel. And so in this project, we're looking to identify projects that can enhance active transportation environments, like this project also in Redwood City, which is great, which is a separated bike ped undercrossing that makes walking, rolling, and biking across 101 easy, comfortable, and completely separated from traffic. This is a refresher for most of you. When we talk about active transportation, we mean human-powered mobility. So that's traveling by foot, by bike, by mobility device, by scooter, etc. And in identifying projects or improvements that may come out of this plan and be prioritized for implementation, they range. They can be large, they can be small. So on the smaller side, that may be high visibility crosswalks to enhance the pedestrian environment. Toward the bigger scale, that may look like bicycle or pedestrian overcrossings, new bike lanes, curb extensions, etc. So why is enhancing active transportation within San Mateo County important? We have data that's been collated for a separate TA project, and that data identified that 56% of all trips in San Mateo County are under 3 miles. And the 3-mile threshold is really important because trips up to about a mile are ones that are thought of to be able to be accomplished by foot or by rolling. And trips that are up to 3 miles can be accomplished by bike. With e-bikes coming into the environment more often, we can actually extend past those 3 miles. But more than half of the trips in the county are ones that could have the potential to be shifted to active transportation. So how are we going to go about Active 101 and enhancing that active transportation environment? Again, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're looking at already adopted plans, very similar to the multimodal strategy, and pulling out projects that are within a quarter mile of 101 this time. And this time, the projects are being identified that have the ability to enhance the active transportation environment. So for this project, we're focused solely on active transportation. From doing that, we pulled out between 150 and 200 projects from all of the adopted plans within the San Mateo County area. So taking those 150 to 200 projects, how do we figure out how to prioritize and move through identifying the projects that are most important to the community? First, we ran a data-driven prioritization based, again, on the goals of the 101 Corridor Connect program. And we have a preliminary ranking of approximately the top 25 projects in each segment of the county, again, North, Mid, and South County. So that's about 75 prioritized projects right now. And as Amy will speak to in just a second, we'll be using community engagement and community feedback to sort of gut check that prioritization and determine if there are locations within the county where there's significant concern where a project should be identified. As Amy mentioned also, this is a phased project. So after the initial prioritization, we'll be pulling the top 8 to 10 projects or so and moving those into conceptual design. And that will assist jurisdictions in being more ready to take on grant applications or to move forward into design. At the same time, out of those 75 projects or so, or any of the projects within a quarter mile, we'll be looking to identify a complete north-south corridor within the county and identify the projects that would be necessary to create that to include them in the prioritization. With that, I'll turn it back to Amy for more community engagement.
Thank you. So similar to what we've done for the multimodal strategies, we are engaging in a robust community and stakeholder engagement effort for this project. I was talking to another team member today, and I think we've given about 21 presentations on this project so far this fall. Again, similar to the multimodal strategies, this project has its own webpage, its own fact sheet. We have been hosting pop-ups throughout the county to talk to members of the community. The main feedback loop for this project is a little bit different. We are not sending out a survey for people to figure out, to fill out. We are asking them to vote on projects. So we have set up a You Fund It site, for lack of a better description, where members of the community have $10 that they can use to vote on which projects they think address their active transportation concerns along the corridor. So thinking back about that picture in Redwood City that Sue Ellen showed earlier, if there's a project that addresses those concerns, if you know of an intersection that has a lack of pedestrian access, a lack of bike access, it's just generally an unsafe area to walk, bike, or roll, maybe there's a project in North County or Mid County or South County that can address those needs. We're encouraging members of the community and stakeholders to fund the projects that best address those needs. You get $10, you can spend it all in one project, you can spend $1 on each project. It just depends on how you want to prioritize those. This is really going to be our main feedback loop. We really need people to be able to weigh in on these projects and be able to see them on the map so that they can help us determine which ones are a priority for the community as we get toward the next phase of the project. This tool, again, is open until the end of the month, and after we close the tool, we'll be aggregating the results and see which projects our priority for the community as we move forward. Slide. Here's a quick timeline of where we're at and where we're going to be. We are in that improvement selection process right now, which includes our fall community and stakeholder engagement. We will be back this spring with conceptual designs for about 10 projects across the county. And this is going to be a little bit more of a tangible engagement where we're going to be holding community workshops where people can come and see those conceptual designs and see which ones work best for them. And they'll be given an opportunity to vote on those again. And then we'll wrap that up in the summer. The goal is to be out next fall with a final improvements plan that will be approved by our board. We also added a carrot for this one. Anybody who finishes the tool and gives us our email address is entered into a raffle to win a $250 gift card. I think we're giving out 3 of those, but don't quote me on that. That's the end of our presentation. We are, of course, happy to answer any questions you may have.
Fabulous. Thank you. Okay. We do open public comment first. So, Clark, are there anyone who is interested in providing public comment?
We do have one person.
Great. Thank you so much for attending and speaking. You will have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. Thanks to the committee and Chair Narita for hosting this meeting. And thank you to Amy and Sue Ellen for putting on this presentation. My name is Mike Swire. I'm the chair of the CCAG Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee and also an appointee to the TA's Community Advisory Committee, although I'm speaking on my own behalf tonight. Again, thanks for the presentation and its focus on the needs of those who would like to safely travel in San Mateo without the use of an automobile. I only wish that the TA's aggregate spending on bike and pedestrian safety align with the level of marketing and outreach that it does on these projects. Currently, only 3 to 5% of the TA's spending goes towards projects that focus on the safety of those who walk and bike in our area. Most of the bike and pedestrian projects that will be considered through this program will be relatively small. Meanwhile, the TA and CCAG with Caltrans focuses the majority of its spending on 9-figure projects that widen highways and encourage more people to drive instead of taking Caltrain, BART, Samtrans, or walking and biking. These projects include the recently completed $600 million express lane project between Redwood City and San Bruno, which unnecessarily widened Highway 101 in San Mateo, adding more cars to local roads. This project also effectively killed the long-planned bike and pedestrian safety bridge on Hillsdale at 101, and is also responsible for increasing air pollution in equity priority neighborhoods like North Central and Shoreview next to the highway, as we see more cars come on the road and fill up the additional capacity. Another project of concern is the 101-92 direct connector, which is currently under consideration and which will largely cater to East Bay residents who can afford the express lanes, which will be paid for by San Mateo County residents. There currently is no public transit on the San Mateo Bridge. I would encourage the TA to present to the city and the Sustainability Committee on these projects and likewise survey the public on their priorities as you're doing today. I think you'll hear that most of the public do not want more highway expansion, and most of the public believes that these projects induce more auto demand and fail to improve congestion. If we truly want to reduce auto congestion, we should stop spending billions on projects that expand highways and encourage people to drive. I would encourage the Sustainability Committee to urge the TA board to move more of its spending and focus towards sustainable modes of transportation, as transportation is responsible for 60% of greenhouse gas emissions in San Mateo County. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Anyone else?
No.
Okay. Thank you. So we'll go to questions and comments from the commission. I will go first because I went last time I was chairing. So thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. I have a lot of 101 questions because it's the first opportunity in my tenure on the commission to receive information from the Transportation Authority. So I'm very excited to meet you, Amy, and lovely to see you again, Sue Ellen. So I have like super basic questions for you. First off, Mike's comments said that 60% of GHG emissions in the county come from transportation. I'm assuming he's accurate because he usually knows his stuff. Is that accurate?
The majority of GHG emissions do come from on-road transportation. If it's 60% or not, I couldn't say offhand.
But plus 50%, let's just say then.
The
right, majority is
correct.
over 50%. Okay, great, close enough. Does the TA have a goal around GHG reductions?
Not that I'm aware of.
So then how does sustainability and GHG emissions play into the prioritization that you've just walked us through?
What we're looking at is reducing the number of single occupancy vehicles on the freeway by enhancing access to active transportation. So in having more ability to utilize active transportation, we're able to get people out of cars, which can lead to reducing GHG emissions attributed to vehicles.
Are you the main entity that would have the convening authority and funding to be able to address that majority of emissions from transportation in our county? Or is there another entity that holds that kind of convening role? You can tell my questions are very basic.
CCAG is the primary congestion management or official congestion management agency within San Mateo County, and they're the entity that establishes policy around transportation in San Mateo County. So
Okay,
that
and
may
then
be
what-
a question better posed to the CCAG.
And I am unclear on the ecosystem, so could you explain the ecosystem and how does CCAG play in with the TA?
CCAG is the City and County Association of Governments, again, the official congestion management agency for San Mateo County. It's an entirely separate entity from the Transportation Authority. The Transportation Authority is part of the Transit District, and our primary role is administering the half-cent sales tax measures, Measure A and Measure W within the county. So two separate agencies. The TA is focused more on planning and project delivery, while CCAG is focused more on policy development.
So theoretically then, the way one would address GHG emissions from transportation in a more regional format would be that the CCAG or the state, let's assume the state is not the entity for a moment doing it, but like if it's a regional entity, it would be the CCAG would set policy. Does the TA have to implement policy that the CCAG does?
CCAG's member agencies are the local jurisdictions, but also I would note that Caltrans is actively involved in transportation, particularly along 101. It's the state freeway. And also we have Metropolitan Transportation Commission, which is the Transportation Commission for the 9-county Bay Area. So there are a lot of different factors. I don't think that I could narrow it to one specific entity
Okay.
that would guide that.
Do you have other goals that you're trying to achieve? For instance, like a congestion reduction goal, like as an authority, like as a whole TA, do you have like we hope to reduce congestion by that, a 10% or something by 2030?
There's no specific number. As a whole, our mission is to administer Measure A and Measure W funding in accordance with county provisions. So there's no exact goal for congestion reduction. Our overall mission is to do that, but there's no number that we're pushing out there.
So we're using taxpayer or sales tax measure money to
To
implement
fund transportation program.
to fund transportation programs, which is
projects
super important.
aimed at
But-
reducing congestion.
We hope. Do you guys measure that at the back end then, and then are able to say, hey, once a project is developed, we have reduced congestion by X amount?
I would say that the ultimate goal of the project would need to be congestion reduction. Again, pointing back to there's no specific number at hand.
So understanding that there's no number at hand in the beginning in terms of goal setting, there's also no tracking then of actual reductions from interventions on the back end.
To my knowledge, no, but I'd have to get back to you on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a little awkward. Sorry, I didn't realize that line of questioning would go
No,
there,
that's
but that's
okay.
a little awkward. And you know, okay. Where do you get your funding from outside of it's the sales tax measures then? So you do not get any money from the state to implement transportation projects?
Some of our projects, like Active 101, are grant funded. Through that one in particular is a state grant through the Sustainable Communities Program. But the primary budget for the TA is the half-cent sales measure.
Okay. Okay, great. So there are some grant funding then but you don't receive a pass-through. Like when state DOT, like California State DOT gets its money from the federal infrastructure bill, that money does not go to you guys. It goes where?
I would definitely have to look into that.
Okay,
And get back
no, it's okay.
to
You don't have to do that, Sue Ellen. But no, that it doesn't go to you guys. That's very interesting. Okay, great. Thank you. I'm sorry these are so basic, but I do think this is really nice that you're here, and thank you so much for answering my very basic questions. Okay, more specific questions to the two projects at hand. Who is the city staff person involved in the Mid-County multimodal one?
I believe the Public Works Engineering Manager was part of that group.
Is that
JU.
okay? It's Jay. Thank you. Okay, great. And so I had a question with regards to I had a comment, not question. Sorry, we're doing blended questions and comments now. It's a little bizarre, but bear with me. So I had a comment which was on the two deadlines being at the end of November. That actually is essentially making a deadline in actually 10 days from now because people will start to leave for Thanksgiving on the November 23rd. And so my recommendation would be if you could extend that to like that first Friday or Saturday of December when people are back at their desks or at their, in the city even and paying attention, that might be best because you actually are losing days then.
We typically don't do outreach after Thanksgiving, keeping in mind that a lot of people aren't available for meetings, aren't interested in us bothering them, for lack of a better description. So I typically try to cut things off to the best of my ability toward the end of the month. If there is a desire to leave things open, that is flexible. It's not a set in stone deadline. It's just something that we try to do to make sure that we're falling in line with what the community's availability may be in terms of their holidays.
Totally. So what I'm hearing though, Amy, then is that you have already accounted for in your project planning of public engagement the fact that there is Thanksgiving and you are front loading accordingly. Yes. And so it's a courtesy that the survey happens to be open pretty much till the end of November without necessarily anticipating the bulk of responses because people are procrastinators to necessarily come in that final week, and that's okay in terms of how the survey results, the number of survey responses you're getting?
Yes, and as we've gone through this, we check in on the survey responses and see how we need to adjust outreach and engagement and any survey pushes we do. So when we come back from Thanksgiving, we'll take a look at the results and see if we need to adjust the calendar with relation to the survey deadlines. Again, they're not fixed in stone. They're things that I made up. So they're flexible.
Okay.
Yeah.
And through the chair, if I can just add, we've had the survey open since early October,
Mid-October, yes. The first weekend of October, we opened it up. We generally utilize a 6 to 8 week outreach timeline to make sure that we're being broad and focused at the same time.
Great, thank you. I also had a question and point of clarification. Sue Ellen, you mentioned that there was a great slide that had the dots. It was like 148 dots, 75 dots, then 8 to 10 dots, with 8 to 10 dots being preliminary designs. Then you said verbally, we're also looking at a north-south corridor across the county. Could you expand upon what that is? And that is different than the 8 to 10 preliminary designs, correct?
We don't know yet if it'll be different.
Oh, okay.
The 8 to 10 will likely be the top prioritized projects, although if we're taking those projects into conceptual design, they inherently have to be projects that haven't been designed yet. We do have some projects that are in the list that are in design, that have been designed and haven't been constructed, because we want to identify the full range of funding that's needed to get these projects on the ground. So they are in various stages. So those 8 to 10 projects need to be basically the lines on the map that haven't gone into that conceptual design yet. So in terms of that north-south corridor, it may be one of those 8 to 10. It may be projects in that top 75 list, or it may be others that are within that larger list that are necessary as connections to make that north-south corridor happen.
Okay, and so the goal, what I'm hearing is that there's a goal to have a north-south corridor within a quarter mile of the 101.
We're hoping that we are able to identify a full corridor, yes.
Okay, and what was the thinking behind like that versus like making the Bay Trail nicer and more accessible?
The Bay Trail is often more than a quarter mile from the freeway, and so we wanted to have something that would provide that same accessibility, but for those who are traveling by active transportation. The Bay Trail has a number of projects that have been identified along it. MTC recently completed their gap closure plan to identify all of the necessary gaps to close in the Bay Trail. So there's definitely efforts that are moving forward for the Bay Trail, but it's not necessarily accessible. We were talking about the lack of east-west connectivity. It's not necessarily as accessible as we would prefer right now. So in identifying that north-south corridor throughout the county, we're looking to provide the ability to travel similarly to what you could do in a car on 101, but in ways getting you out of your car.
And are there health index data points or whatever that you use when evaluating projects? Because I can imagine, we know that the air quality around the 101 corridor is significantly more unhealthy than not. Maybe with electric vehicles, it'll improve over time, but does that play into your prioritization process?
Not at this point, but we can take that comment and look into it.
Okay, great. So my closing comment is this. Please look into health data when looking at projects. Please figure out GHG potential at some point. Seems like there's a black hole or a dead zone in planning when it comes to both these types of projects and transit authority, if we don't have a GHG goal in mind, or if we don't know in hindsight how this stuff leads to improvement. I think there's a storytelling piece there too, because as we need more and more active transportation, if we can't prove and measure the improvement that current projects or past projects have achieved, we are undercutting ourselves and our ability to tell that compelling story, when I would assume many of these projects would be met with traditional opposition from folks who want expanded freeways and want like other things, rather than having more people on the road that they could potentially, harm with their car. So it just seems like we're not, the level of sophistication there on storytelling could potentially benefit, because I feel like your stakeholder engagement is incredibly sophisticated and it's very inspiring, your stakeholder engagement processes. And there's some best practices in there that I wanted to highlight in my comments. One, love the gift cards, so smart. It actually really improves uptake. There's been a lot of data around that, and that's like amazing. Just a small nudge like that really does help a lot, so that's really amazing. The use of data to identify the top ridership bus stops and then putting the signs there was brilliant. I would recommend going a step further the next time you do this kind of a project and have someone there talking to people. Like, I know it's time consuming, but it's like a pop-up. It's like a version of pop-up at that point, which I thought was so clever and something I hope the city, can take advantage of in terms of like thinking about how we use data to improve our stakeholder engagement processes here. I also loved the level of sophistication when it comes to the $10 thing. I look forward to spending my $10 virtually, and taking the survey. But I think that that's really just really smart because it gets to the level of prioritization of folks. So all that to say, thank you so much. I know I took a lot of time and asked a lot of basic questions, but I do hope you guys come back and provide updates as helpful. Really appreciate it and learned a lot from you. Thank you. Okay, sorry everyone. Thank you for bearing with me. Who would like to go next? All right. Thank you, Commissioner Krantz.
Thank you, ladies. Thanks for your presentation. And as you go through the democratic process of figuring this stuff out. So here's a question or a comment. So when my wife worked at Stanford, she got passes on Caltrain and was met scheduling-wise instantly with the Marguerite, which would take her to the university where she worked. It's a fishbowl, I get that, but it worked. And she would not consider driving because it worked so well. Now, to get to the train station was treacherous, and she used a car. She's a cyclist. She would be more than happy to ride. But thanks for taking up the shield to defend people who want to use alternative modes of transportation. Does this give you any food for thought for developing a program for people to gently nudge them into the intermodal, multimodal transportation model? And I'll do questions and comments, just so you don't forget.
Okay. I have a unique perspective on the Stanford program because I used to work there.
Cool.
On the transportation program. Stanford has a large amount of funding available for their transportation program. So they are able to do the Caltrain Go Pass program for their employees, which is for a large employer quite costly, several $1 million a year. They also offer the VTA EcoPass. At that time, I don't believe we offered the Samtrans Pass, but that may have changed. The Marguerite system has a not small staff dedicated to scheduling, managing the contract, et cetera. And then Stanford's also able to pay employees and I believe graduate students not to drive. So if they forego a parking permit, they get paid. Right. So all that to say, it's an incredibly sophisticated program that utilizes a lot of funding that employers, cities, et cetera, TA, don't necessarily have at their disposal. So it's an excellent example of TDM options, but it's a very unique example because they do have the funding available to do that.
It sounds like it's a pretty large footprint.
Yes.
And back office infrastructure to make this thing. I'm just not trying to go for the Stanford model, but food for thought for trying to entice other big corporations to maybe have a similar program. Maybe instead of using the San Mateo Bridge, they could park at the Hayward stop and then get bussed over the bridge to the train and then go on to their jobs. And then those jobs, just spitballing, these things may or may not work. So let's move on. So is San Mateo's Department of Public Works going to be involved with these programs in terms of building and maintaining?
No, the San Mateo County Transportation Authority is part of the transit district. We're not part of the San Mateo County government. Okay, but you're not looking to us to provide additional infrastructure to build, maintain, financially be responsible for anything? Because I'm looking at it in terms of cost and in terms of manpower. Will there be a strain
our existing manpower to put these programs into place.
What we're doing right now is identifying projects that are priorities throughout the county. That gives us the information for both efforts, for the multimodal strategy and for Active 101, to focus the efforts that the TA is making on, we offer grant programs with Measure A and Measure W funds. So the types of projects that are eligible for funding under that, or helping cities identify priority projects that would qualify for different grant programs under the TA. Also providing technical assistance to cities because it takes a lot of staff time to write grant applications for these projects, and grants are often needed because of the cost of the projects. So the TA will be providing technical assistance to jurisdictions to assist them with applying to TA grants, to MTC grants, state grants, et cetera. Or there may be projects that involve multiple jurisdictions that the TA would lead. But we would be identifying those projects. If it's a project in a singular city, then that may be one that a city would move forward for implementation. If they have access to local funding, that may be an option. But ultimately, the facilities within the cities would be on city right-of-way, and they would be owned by the city.
Okay. Are you getting involved with the Mariners Island Boulevard Transportation Multimode project?
Yes, the TA is working with the city on that project.
Okay. Is it too early for technical questions? Are we not there yet?
It may be too early, but you can go ahead and we'll see if we can answer them.
Okay. Just looking at the model you have over 3rd Avenue, we have the bike lane up the center. Are you considering that for Hillsdale?
That's a project that I believe came up in the prioritization for Active 101. We would have to check that in the voting tool.
Okay, because right below it is a bike path, and if you could do some sort of ADA compliant, not sure what the word is for it, using a ramp, 2 ramps up there with the proper pitch. You got the problem solved on that side. I don't know about the Whole Foods side and how you'd handle that. Maybe just continue it going straight, but that would be a thing. And the second thing for your subject matter experts is we have profound amount of what's called subsidence on the east side, and you may want to talk to your SMEs about using some sort of geofoam so that this project will last a lot longer, especially little kids, people in wheelchairs trying to navigate a big bump onto the overpass. I think you get a little bit more mileage out of using some sort of a mitigating agent. That's it. I'm good. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sorry, everyone. It's been a long day for me. I apologize. Commissioners, who would like to go next? Thanks, Commissioner Worski.
Okay, thanks. So here, I need to make sure. The objective of the 101 and the multimodality program is to ultimately narrow down roughly 8 to 10 projects. And these projects would be located, and once again, this is the current objective as I understand it, create some sort of north-south corridor, like following the 101, 1 mile east, 1 mile west, and roughly 8 to 10 projects within, in this case, the mid-county. Is that the ultimate objective?
Not quite. We did definitely overwhelm you with information because San Mateo being in the middle of the county, you're in both of the projects that we're working on right now. So we're doing a combined effort with you. For Active 101, we've narrowed down right now to about 25-ish projects in each segment of the county. So about 75 or so. When we are done with the community input, the voting tool, et cetera, that will allow us to confirm if that prioritization is right or to make modifications if we're seeing concentrations of concerns. So the outcome is going to be that prioritized list of roughly 75 projects or so. Of those, We'll pull out about 8 to 10 to move forward into the conceptual design phase to make those projects a little closer to it being ready for design, implementation, understanding the impacts, et cetera. Along with that, we are hoping to identify a north-south corridor, but that won't be 8 to 10 projects. That's a lot of different segments that are going to go into that.
Okay, so the north to south corridor is somewhat separate from the 8 to 10 projects
Yes.
that, we'll call them, that move into conceptual design.
Maybe. Some of the 8 to 10 may be part of that corridor. We don't know yet.
Sure. Does your information give you a sense of what types of projects are we looking for in that 8 to 10? What could make that cut? And here's why I ask. I had sent to you some questions beforehand, and in there I talk about grade separations in the city of San Mateo. And I won't go into what exactly, but maybe that's not the appropriate type of project that would make it into the 8 to 10. I'm just trying to get a sense of, do you have a sense, just big picture, what some of those projects could look like?
We haven't identified the 8 to 10 yet. We're still in the prioritization for the
Right.
75-ish. But the projects are all going to be ones that enhance active human-powered mobility. So a grade separation project would not be one that would be identified in Active 101.
Okay. And I could make, by the way, and let me just kind of respond to that. I could see grade separations being part of Active 101, and here's why. When you do the grade separations, you're putting in not only sidewalks and bike lanes, some of them dedicated, some of them shared, and possibly accommodating those in wheelchairs and walkers. So when I look at grade separations, and they're great, by the way, in terms of reducing vehicle congestion, but I do look at the bigger benefit personally. But I hear what you're saying is that they may, relative to other active transportation projects where we might be able to get more benefit for the money. There's better projects out there, is what I hear you saying, for what we can do on active transportation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Through Active 101, we're looking for the lower cost options to implement, and grade separations by their nature are not those.
Are not in that.
Yeah.
And would they be in the multimodality?
In the multimodal strategy, I am not certain if they would be, but we can look into that project list and get back to you.
Because one of the questions I had sent, and I'm not going to, and we don't have to respond to this, is, obviously, Sue Ellen, the downtown grade separations, how would you advise the city to work with the TA to advance those grade separations? But maybe that might be too much of a reach for what we're trying to do here, is what I get a sense of.
That would likely be separate from either of these two projects.
Got it.
The TA is working with several jurisdictions on grade separations that are in the previously approved pipeline list. Burlingame, Redwood City, et cetera. We just were part of the 25th Avenue grade separation project that was recently completed.
Right, which was very good. Yeah, that was a very good one. Okay, that helps out. So these kind of 8 to 10 projects focused on active transportation, and the distinction between the north-south corridor and these projects. I appreciate that. Okay, so I'm going to be a little provincial here. When the TA looked at the 148 projects within the 101, 25 per segment, that is north, mid, and south. Are there, of those in the mid, were there any of those projects identified for the city of San Mateo? And this is where I say provincial. I know we're looking at something county-wide, but I'm just trying to get a read of did anything come out for the city of San Mateo in there?
Yes, there are a few.
Okay.
And you'll be able to see them in the voting tool.
Oh, okay. Oh, they are in the voting tool. Oh, see, now you know I didn't vote. I did do the survey, by the way, last week.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, thank you on that. So we need to go to the voting tool. Let's see. the feedback, the pop-ups that were done on October 12th in the city and October 26th in the city, anything kind of jump out to, and maybe both of you weren't there, or maybe that data hasn't been finalized yet. Is there anything that stood out that you were hearing from our residents?
From San Mateo residents specifically?
Yeah.
So
City of San Mateo.
City of San Mateo, sorry. So I would say for the multimodal strategies, the most relevant improvement that people want to see are improved roadway conditions in terms of infrastructure and infrastructure to address congestion. There was also a topic about, improved access to transit, more affordable transit. Those are the topics that sort of bubbled up to the top from my observations. Now, we do take all of the data that we collect during the pop-ups and we aggregate it and make sure that those results are accurate. So my, observations are not necessarily exactly what the data will bear out. And there will be a report issued at the end of the engagement period to sort of go into exactly what the feedback is saying and who's responding and what they're saying and what the demographics are. We really distill it down. So those are just sort of my observations as I attend the pop-ups. I wasn't at the Booze on B Street one that Sue Ellen was at, which there were a lot of people. It was like 500 people we talked to.
So anything, Sue Ellen, kind of jump out?
I was at both
and
events.
That's a hard question, by the way.
Yeah, we've done a lot of outreach in the last month.
Yeah.
I was at both events. So we were at Dia de los Muertos at the King Center for Active 101. And I believe that the locations that popped out there were the 3rd Avenue overcrossing and Peninsula, I believe.
Yeah.
And then, yes, I was at Booze on B Street. It was extremely hectic. And we had a lot of participation in the voting tool at that point. And I am seeing the poster board in my mind, and there were just stickers everywhere. But there was a lot of interest in more active transportation infrastructure, access to transit, and improvements on the existing infrastructure.
Right. Okay. All righty. I realize you haven't finalized the review of your data. I'm just kind of asking you, based on, just kind of high-level observations. And I think you've answered that. I appreciate that. I want to go to the Hillsdale overpass, which I think there are several citizens or residents who are concerned it was canceled because of the 101 expansion and may not resurrect, and the city has invested a fair amount of money to date. I think that money, Catherine, is what was about $297,000, $295,000?
You mean the local match? It was, I think, 295,000 was and then there was some money from Measure A, I believe.
Right, but what the city put in so far on the overpass was roughly about 295,000. Okay, so and that overpass possibly could be a project that could be in that 8 to 10. The pool of 8 to 10 projects. It's close within 101. It is revolved, and maybe would it be considered part of that 101 overpass?
That specific location could come up as a priority in either of the projects that we've spoken about.
Okay, so it could be a potential. Okay, and the city's already invested almost $300,000 in this, and so is this project canceled? I know the work that was done. I think we need to rectify this because I hear this from several residents. So if someone can answer the following question: is this project canceled? And if so, was it the 101 widening of lanes? I hear this from 4 people, so I have to get it answered.
Yeah, through the chair, Matt Fabry, Public Works Director. I don't think the project was canceled because of the 101 project. I think the project has suffered from the fact that it's incredibly expensive, and there just hasn't been money identified that would get us even through some of the design phases that we need to get through. And then I think the construction estimate was, hundreds of millions of dollars, I believe, to to construct. So I think that's the challenge. So I think the initial design for it, and this is before my time, so I don't know all
Yeah.
the details, but I think it was a fairly significant design. It was kind of like I can't think of the word, but like a feature sort of like the Bay Bridge that's like a significant
Right,
feature.
actually, some of us saw it.
Yeah, and I think
yeah.
my understanding is it had 4 touchdown points, at 2 on either end or something like that. So it was a significant design, and I think that contributed to the significant cost of it. So at this point, it's still something that the city, Public Works is interested in. We actually had a fact sheet on this that we took when we went back to DC in April of this year to present to federal agencies back there to talk about the need. But I think the need at this point is to revisit in terms of a scaled back effort, and is there a more affordable way to make that project happen? Because the way it was going, it was just financially infeasible to pursue that.
Right. Okay. So, we've got basically $300,000 that we invested, and in a design that is not we can't implement. So we're kind of back into the feasibility stage of this.
Yeah, and I guess I just would, throw a comment out that's my 2 cents on
please,
sort of the concept design, I think, of what the TA is trying to do is that generally this effort of developing concept designs is really focused on, it's a very low-level design, like a 10% design or something like that, that's really helpful for an agency to have something that they can then attach to a grant application and go after funding. And so I think the TA is going to obviously be making difficult decisions about which projects really make the most sense to do concept designs, and I'm not sure that something as big and significant as the Hillsdale overcrossing, especially with the amount of information that's already been developed, would necessarily be a project that makes the most sense for a concept design. I'm definitely happy to talk with the TA about that if our project ends up potentially being one of the 8 to 10 that they're interested in. I think it would be worth talking about. But to the extent that we already have a whole lot of information, a 10% concept design may not be getting us any further than we've already been, and it may be better to go for an intersection project that's doing pedestrian and bicycle improvements or something that's much easier to show and have nice renderings of the concept design.
Right, and then apply for grants and continue to move on, basically a bit of seed capital. So let me ask you this, Amy, does this play into Mike Swire's comment or request to increase spending for active transportation? He said currently at 3 to 5%, and that should be higher.
So we have,
or is it really the objective is just as Matt said, just provide some seed capital and then continue to build up?
So there's a couple of answers to that question. And yes, the idea here behind Active 101 and the multimodal strategies is to provide some sort of forward-looking plan to possibly implement these projects and to get more funding for them at the federal, state, and local level. It's something that would help promote the projects. It's not necessarily a guarantee. In terms of the funding that the TA gives out, the difference between highway funding and active transportation funding and grade separations, those are finite buckets of funding. Measure A and Measure W dedicates how much funding the TA can give to each of these categories. And we don't have the ability to move funds from different categories to another. So the request to say, put more money from the highway fund into active transportation or into grade separations is not something the TA is at liberty to do. It goes against what the voters of San Mateo County asked for when they passed Measure A and Measure W.
Okay.
So those are not, we just simply don't have the ability to do that. But it is important to make sure that active transportation projects are funded along the corridor, and that is why we are engaging in this process to help push them forward to the extent that we can.
Right. Yeah. So the Hillsdale Overpass could be given some money to continue its development, but it wouldn't be completed under this plan, under the Active 101 or the multimodality.
These plans are not assigning or awarding funding to any project. It may be identified as a priority project, which would help the city in applying for grants because it helps to tell the story that it's one of the, possibly one of the top priority projects within the county, which is important. So these plans will give projects that ability to tell the story of the prioritization and the need, but it doesn't make them more eligible for TA grant programs, nor does it guarantee or assign funding.
Got it. Okay, so, and that's a really important point, and I really appreciate this conversation here. So if you were to make this more attractive from a grant perspective, you know, and Sue Ellen, you know my feelings on this, and we've had discussions on incorporating input from those in the disabled community. I don't know whether that can make something more attractive in terms of active transportation, but, and this is where I'm going to now roll into my comments and finish up here. Now that I can say I understand now the objective of this. It's really there to promote further exploration of projects. Could you do me a favor? Could you go to slide 13? And I'm into comments now. Because I think incorporating more into your graphics, and I did see the disabled community could be another leverage point for funding. Let's see if I... Yeah, so here, 13 and 14, I think what would be appropriate, Sue Ellen, I'm sorry to repeat myself on this, but to have the wheelchair icon. And you can look at any of the icons, but once again, it's signifying that this group of people are included in this plan. And I did see throughout some other slides, the gentleman in the wheelchair and the wheelchair icon. But for anything that's coming out to the public and you're speaking with a lot of people, putting that in there, I think signifies something. And then I understood that the survey, like I said, I took mine last week, is the main feedback loop for the multimodality, and the GoFundMe project is for the Active 101. And I agree with Kimmy, I thought that was very clever, along with your bus solicitations. I thought that was very clever. So, but these would be the ways, these are two funding mechanisms. And have you, and they're or two input mechanisms. So have you taken these and gone out to the disabled community? Because they could do this remotely.
They can, and we've actually given three different presentations to disabled community focus groups. We have a San Mateo County Paratransit Coordinating Committee that we provided an update to. Sure. Then we provided an update to the Caltrain and Samtrans Accessibility Advisory Committee. And then last week, Sue Ellen and I were at the San Mateo County Commission on Disabilities, also giving a presentation. So we have made sure that we are engaging with that specific community and making sure that we do get that feedback, because we want to make sure that the outreach is really inclusive, and we are reaching out to all modes of transportation, including people that use mobility devices.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then if they had any questions, I know a pool of roughly about 6 to 7 disabled folks here in the city of San Mateo. If they had questions, they could fill out these surveys and likewise contact you, Amy, or Sue Ellen.
Of course,
okay.
Yes. And we actually got some good feedback from the Commission on Disabilities last week and some additional contacts that we could make. So it's an important constituency that we're actually trying to build out a little bit more as we go through these outreach periods.
Because they're an important active transportation group. Okay, super. That's all my questions.
And if I could quickly through the chair, I just want to clarify one of the comments I made. I just got fact-checked by one of our Zoom viewers right now, and the Hillsdale project, I think our construction estimate back in 2018 was about $35 million. I was trying to remember what the email said, and I was moving a decimal point, so it wasn't hundreds of millions, it was tens of millions of dollars to construct the Hillsdale project, but it's still tens of millions of dollars that the city doesn't have available to build something like that, so I apologize for the mistake.
Thank you. Great. Thank you. Vice Chair Michaels, please.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation and these two exciting efforts. You'll probably notice some confusion also in my clarifying questions. So the Active 101 and the multimodal, they're sourcing from the same lists of projects to prioritize. And could the same project be on both prioritized lists of each effort? Does that clear? Okay.
Pretty close. Active 101 is sourcing from all of the adopted active transportation plans, which are also included in the multimodal strategy, but the multimodal strategy also includes transit and highway projects, so it's sourcing from a larger pool. So it is possible that a project could be prioritized on both lists, but again, Active 101 is focused on human-powered mobility.
Okay. And then you spoke about it a little bit, but prioritizing means that basically the project will be set up so that it couldn't be funded, but there is no funding attached with these efforts.
By prioritizing, we mean that we'll essentially come out with an ordered list of projects based on the program goals, community input, et cetera. And that will give us the information that we need in order to know what the community concerns and needs are for projects to help move them forward. But no, there is not any funding that will be necessarily attached to any project.
And does prioritize mean the same thing for Active 101 and multimodal? I think Active 101 is going to have the 10% design, but multimodal won't, or is it the same thing?
Multimodal strategy will have a list of projects, essentially in number order. And that will be within the Mid-County segment. So we've just finished that up for North County. Active 101 will also have a prioritized list, similar to a local jurisdiction prioritizing projects in a bike or a pedestrian master plan, where projects are high priority, medium priority, et cetera. So there will be a prioritized list for Active 101, but then we will also be moving a few of those projects into that 10% design phase.
So like you said, a lot of cities may have bike plans with prioritized projects. So you're sort of pulling those prioritized projects, compiling them of all the cities' prioritized projects, and then figuring out which one would most benefit.
We're not pulling the prioritization with each project from the local jurisdiction. What we're doing is prioritizing at a county level or at a segment of the county, whereas a local jurisdiction prioritizes based on their specific community needs. So we're not incorporating any of the local priorities.
Okay. And is Corridor Connect the same thing as Active 101?
101 Corridor Connect is the overarching program, looking at congestion relief along 101. Active 101 is one of the initiatives within that program.
And where does the multimodal is a second initiative or separate?
Separate initiative. It's the first initiative under 101 Corridor Connect.
Okay. And then I also took the survey, but it wasn't clear to me, is the voting on projects open? Is that already people been doing? Okay. And when does that close?
So the voting tool opened a little bit later than the multimodal strategy survey did. I think it was more toward the middle of October. I will leave that open similar to the timeline that we're targeting for multimodal strategies. So toward the end of the month, we'll close that. Okay. Also, acknowledging that we'll have to go back and look at see how many people have voted, and see if we need to adjust that calendar based on the level of participation that we've gotten. So again, it's flexible depending on what's happening with the tool, really.
Do you have an idea already of both how responses have been going, both for the survey and for the voting?
So I don't have a current read on the voting tool. The multimodal strategy survey is similar to what we got with North County, maybe even a little bit above. We're at about a 500, 600 level of responses, which is a good level of response for Mid-County. It's comparable to what we got for North County, even a little bit over. So I think the addition of those temporary bus stop signs really helped us. Yeah.
And thank you for clarifying with other questions about the grade separation and how that really doesn't fit into these projects and so on. And then, so will the next time that will the prioritized projects then be presented back up here? Or we welcome you to come back and present those projects?
We'll be sharing the prioritized projects with the working group. And we've also gone to the CCAG Technical Advisory Committee, which is all of the public works directors within the county. So it's possible that staff could provide an update to that. And in phase 2, we have yet to know which projects for Active 101 we're moving into the 10% design. So that's yet to be seen as to where we'll be then.
And if there'll be any in San Mateo.
Correct.
And so on. Okay. Yeah, even if there's no staff presentation, it could be helpful to just receive an email to the commissioners and announcing that these documents are out and available.
Of course, we'll continue to keep you updated on the status of the projects and make sure that you're aware of any milestones that have been reached.
Great. And then just a minor question, but is transportation to schools being considered? Like, are those also being swept in as prioritized projects that you may have pulled from other plans?
They may be, if they're within the boundaries of each project area. So for multimodal strategy, it's within a mile of 101, which there may be some schools. Active 101 is a little bit more narrow, a quarter mile. So I don't believe that specifically a Safe Routes to School plan has been available to fold in, but to the extent that a project is near a school, it may well be included.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Robbins?
Yep, thank you all very much. The stakeholder engagement on both these is very impressive, so I just wanted to note that. It's always been a complaint in our city, not necessarily a fair one because it's really hard to do, but I think what y'all are doing is excellent. On the, I always focus on the actual projects. You know, the planning and the process is interesting, but I'm more interested to see what projects are likely to happen and make sense. And I was trying to find, I know the North County strategy is finalized, or I thought it was, if I read it correctly, being finalized. Is that it? Is there any way to find that list of projects for the North County? I know we're not there, but.
We anticipate to finalize that plan this winter. So that will be publicly available toward the end of the year, beginning of next year. We'll get better at this as we go along, but that one took a little bit longer. But it's anticipated to be completed end of this year.
I'll find that very informative to reflect what comes through the process, what stakeholders want, and their trade-offs on all these things, because I think a lot of similar projects would likely rise, cream to the top in the Mid-County as well. Okay. On Active 101, boy, I think minimizing barriers, the barrier that 101 is essential. And the city, the East and the West have been divided for a long time in a lot of ways. So I just comment that I think greenhouse gas reduction is key and safety is key, congestion generally, but actually being able to blend the community a little more so that folks, whether it's one of my other hats, want to come from the east side to the Worker Resource Center or back and forth to King Center or just to participate in downtown. I think that's a really laudable goal. My only additional comment is, are you in all this, are you mindful, being mindful of the pushback that you're likely to get may or may not show up from the stakeholders, but that almost every project of this kind, laudable as it may be, gores somebody else's ox. You put in bike paths and you're taking away parking. And it's maybe less of a problem on the crossing, but it's something this city has faced. And I just want to know if that's something y'all would be mindful of in your process.
We're not including potential implementation issues as part of the prioritization per se. For example, in Active 101, when we pull 8 to 10 projects to do the 10% design. That's the point at which you figure out what's able to be accomplished within the available right-of-way, and you identify those potential impacts, if it's parking, if it's lane width reduction or turning lane removal, something like that. That would be the point at which you would identify those, but that is not part of the process to prioritize the projects.
And what does it do to the priority, if anything, if you come up with prioritization and then realize that 2 projects at the top of the list have significant impacts that are going to be problematic? Do they move down the priority list, or?
I don't believe that that would be the case, but again, we haven't moved into that process yet.
Okay, I would ask you to keep that in mind. Those have been some big issues in our recent past here in this city. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much.
Great. I'm so sorry. I missed a question on my paper that I started. I'm exhausted. I'm so sorry. For the express lanes, we get money from the money that is paid in the express lanes. Part of that goes to you guys, right? Like as the TA. Is that accurate?
The money
the revenue.
The revenue from the tolls, the majority of that actually goes to operation and maintenance. And the express lanes are not operated and maintained by the TA. They are operated and maintained by a separate entity, the San Mateo County Express Lanes Joint Powers Authority. So the majority of the revenue does go toward operation and maintenance. And we're really just starting to generate any sort of additional revenue, not backfilling operation and maintenance and things like that. And then there is a certain percentage of the toll revenue that goes to a community equity program that we set up that can help support transportation options for people in lower incomes.
So in the future, like because these projects have a long life, would you anticipate a percent of any of the revenue available to be available for the kinds of projects that you've identified? The kinds of things like active transport, the kinds of things like multimodal, because that is not percentage driven by a ballot initiative, right? Like the other measures were. So, I'm sorry, is revenue from the express lanes to fund other projects? So they're 2 separate entities. The express lanes are operated by a separate entity than the TA. So the TA doesn't oversee that money. Ever. No. Whatsoever. Right. We were a funder of the construction of the express lanes, but we're not maintaining that facility right now or oversight of any of the funding. Okay. Got it. There's a lot of problems with our transportation system, but we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for this really informative session. Okay. No, we have to. Sorry, I shouldn't have done that even myself. I'm so sorry. It was exhausting. I'm personally exhausted. I'm sorry. The protocol is that we do questions, comments, motion from council, motion from the commission, but we don't need a motion this time. Okay. So that concludes our new business. We'll move to reports and announcements. Are there any other reports and announcements? Other than to please fill out the survey and the $10 very cool voting exercise that the TA just taught us about. Okay.
Through the chair, I'll just mention that we do have, I think, tentatively scheduled for a December meeting that would be an item coming from the city manager's office on climate issues. I can't recall exactly what the topic was, but there is tentatively a December meeting planned with the commission.
Okay, great, because before it was to be determined if we would even have one. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it sounds like the city manager's office does have an item that they need to bring to the commission, so I think we're planning on having a December meeting, and I believe all of you got the email that the need for a special meeting has gone away, that the appeals that were filed for the small cells, that Crown Castle withdrew those permits, so those won't be coming in terms of a appeal hearing before the commission. And Catherine is pulling up, so it's new construction reach codes for the 2022 code cycle is the topic that Andrea needs to bring to you on December 11th.
Okay, great. Any other reports and announcements? Okay, great. So with that, I'll close the meeting. Thank you all.